table. This is our work session on the wind tunnel project, the wind farm. LB, let's start with you.
You introduced me already. Elby K. Jackson, Assembly.
Mike Gutierrez, Assembly, and I pocket dial Mr. Flynn about on a weekly basis. I turn my phone off.
Patrick Flynn, Anchorage Assembly.
Dick Green, the Assembly. Paul Holman, the Assembly.
Jennifer Johnson, Assembly.
Okay. Who's here? You're here. Come on up to the table.
Actually, I have...
Introduce yourself and the people that are with you, if you would, please.
Sure. I'm Suzanne Gibson. I'm the Senior Director of Energy Development for CIRI and the Project Manager for Fire Island. I have a couple of people here with me today from CIRI. Michelle DeLong is in our Energy Department. Ashley Schmiedeskamp is Vice President of Business Development. And Dana Zenz is Vice President with Summit Power, who is the developer that CIRI has hired to help us sort of...
If you want to come join us at the table, come on up. There's room here. That way you don't have to try and reach up and talk. Come and join us. And Mr. Posey is here. Hello, Jim.
Morning.
So we'll turn the time over to you guys.
Okay. We have a presentation that we've prepared for you. We're happy to answer questions along the way, or you can hold until the end and we'll do it then. We're going to sort of tag team the presentation and I'm going to kick it off. So we'll provide an introduction. We're going to explain what the Fire Island Wind Project is all about and take any questions that you have. I think that you're probably all pretty familiar with CIRI as an organization. We're a Alaska Native corporation. We have more than 7,300 shareholders who have ties to the Cook Inlet region. So this project is important to us as an organization. It's important to our shareholders who live here, and it's important to businesses and residents who live here and care about having a sustainable price of energy for our economy. We have a diversified company that primarily engages in energy, construction, real estate, and tourism. Dana, do you want to introduce Summit?
Just briefly, Summit Power Group, we're based in Seattle, Washington. We've been in business for about a little over 20 years now, and during that time we have entered into full scope power project development for a number of different utilities. We've completed projects over 7,000 megawatts in natural gas generation. We have, in just the last 18 months, brought online over 700 megawatts of wind projects. We're currently developing, not including the Fire Island project, an additional 500 megawatts of wind projects in the lower 48. We also have a thriving and growing solar PV project business. We just signed a contract this week with one of the larger California investor-owned utilities for a $300 million solar project, which will be located in Fresno, California. And we have, in addition to that, another almost $1 billion worth of solar projects under development. We have business lines in those areas of renewable generation, wind and solar, natural gas generation, and also in coal gasification. We are the recipient of over $400 million in ARR and stimulus grants to help us build a $2 billion coal gasification project in Midland, Texas. So enough about us, I think.
So, overview of the Fire Island Wind Project. CIRI strongly feels that the time to build the project is now. We like to say that the stars are aligned. CIRI is a willing and competent developer. There are 2 subsidies that are available to the project under certain constraints. The first one is a $25 million grant from the state of Alaska to build the intertie from Fire Island to the rail belt grid, and the other one is about $44 million from the federal government. That is through the ARRA, which was passed in 2009. It's programmatically available for projects that are under construction by the end of 2010 and achieve commercial operation by 2012. So given the construction seasons and that we have here in Alaska, this project will be constructed over a 2-year period. We began pre-construction this year. We'll do all the civil work next year, and then we'll erect the turbines in 2012 to reach the goal of having a commercial before the end of that time so that we can get the $44 million federal stimulus money. all
those in? Are you going to use GE turbines?
Yes, we are. Yep. And all of those, the grant money, either from the state or the federal government, is being passed back to railbelt utilities. It all goes to lower the cost of the project and to lower the cost of power from the project to the utilities and their customers. But because of that stimulus money that is available, we are under a compressed timeline. CIRI has made a large commitment to this project, not only by what we say, but also in actions that we have made. We have hired the construction contractor who's going to build the project. They have mobilized over to the island. I'm going to show you some pictures coming up on the work that we've already done. But in order to begin construction this year and qualify for the grant, we have to actually begin building foundations for wind turbines, and our contractor has mobilized and is in the process of meeting that qualification. So the project is also, it's something that's been talked about for about a decade. It's popular with the residents. It's obviously popular with the legislature who put some money behind the project. I think that we're getting good traction with several of the railbelt utilities who also have all made it part of their mission to diversify their energy portfolios. And it has some significant benefits to the municipality as well. This is a difficult economy, and this project, over this 2.5-year construction season, will bring in somewhere on the order of 150 to 200 construction jobs, and also 7 to 12 long-term jobs as well, in addition to some tax revenue that I'm sure that the city would be interested in getting as well. It's consistent with Alaska's newly stated renewable resource goals. I think in the last legislative session, they set a goal of reaching 50% renewable energy by 2025. So this is a really important first step towards meeting that goal. And I think that most utilities will tell you that they are envisioning a time in the very short future that we will be importing LNG to meet our energy needs here in Cook Inlet. And I think that is a difficult pill to swallow, but a reality that we are really facing. And the cost of imported LNG compared to legacy gas contracts that we've enjoyed for many decades here in South Central Alaska is going to be astounding. And we're going to be happy that we made a decision to move forward with a project that does not require fossil fuel to generate energy. So again, I've sort of already touched on this, but the $25 million grant is available for the intertie. That becomes available once we have an executed power purchase agreement. And then we are estimating about $44 million will come back to the project to pay down the cost of the project from the federal government. And so you might wonder who has received this programmatically available stimulus money from the federal government. And this is maybe a little bit out of date. I'm sure that the number's gone up since the last time that I updated the spreadsheet, but the federal government's paid out over $5 billion on the 1603 grant program. And the major recipient of that is a state that's not unlike Alaska, in that it's a heavy oil and gas producing state, but they have received over $1.3 billion of federal stimulus money. And I think the thing that is really sort of poignant about this slide is that there's only 4 states in the entire United States who have not received any funding under the 1603 cash grant program, and Alaska is one of them.
Did Kodiak receive money for their wind turbines under this program?
No, they didn't actually. The 1603 cash grant is only available to tax-paying entities, so none of the cooperatives in the rail belt or the municipality would qualify under this program. So it's important that CIRI is involved in the project because it is a benefit that we are providing to the rail belt, and we're taking all of that money and passing it back through.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Oh, there's a slide that's missing. Okay, well, let me do it from memory.
I'm sorry for interrupting.
No, it's not your fault. I deleted the wrong slide and there's a duplicate in there. Just a little bit about the project itself. It's going to be located over on Fire Island. The land on the project is contained on CIRI-owned lands on Fire Island. You can see that the turbines are all located in the sort of lower 2/3 of the island. There will be 33 GE 1.6 megawatt turbines with a nameplate capacity of just under 53 megawatts. We expect the project to, on average, generate 144,000 megawatt hours each year. And that's enough energy to meet the needs of about 17,000 residential homes. And it will reduce gas consumption by somewhere between 1 to 1.5 BCF of natural gas each year. And to put that into perspective, for rail-belt electric utilities, that equates to about 3.5 to 4% of annual demand. So you're actually burning 4% less natural gas than you would without the wind project.
Jennifer?
Is there any room for expansion, or do you feel this is the maximum that could be used in Fire Island?
We have looked at the possibility of expanding the project to the northern end of the island, but because of the island's proximity to the runway at Anchorage International Airport, we have extended the project as far north as we're going to be able to. So I think there are other wind resources on the rail belt that might allow for other wind projects. I know that Golden Valley is looking at putting in a project at Eva Creek, which is up towards Fairbanks, but this project won't expand.
The other question, just looking at this, and I know that silt is an issue sometimes with the winds off the Knick. Will there be a problem as far as the silt and the winds, as far as just sort of hammering at the windmills?
As far as particulates?
Yes.
Oh, no, all the bearings are sealed, and, you know, GE they've got something like 13,000 of these things in environments all over the world, from deserts to, you know, anything you can think of. And so they're designed to avoid complications from airborne particulates. You can never say never, never say always, but
Yeah.
the level of particulates in the environment here aren't nearly as severe as they see in other locations. So.
And we've included in the wind turbine package an anti-corrosion option, which will also help with that.
Sorry.
It's all right, Jennifer.
So just a little background on the progress that we've made to date on the project. We have all of the permits that we need to construct the project in hand. We have gone a long way towards completing the engineering, both the civil, structural, and electrical engineering for the project. In both 2009 and again during this construction season, we had an extensive tree clearing effort. And we did a pretty extensive geotechnical investigation where they go out and they drill soil samples so that they can begin engineering turbine foundation designs. We have developed gravel resources right there on the island for all the concrete that we need to build the roads and the turbine foundations, and we have also developed the water resources. We prepared a laydown yard so that when we start mobilizing large construction equipment next year, we have a place where they can stage their equipment. And we've also developed an area for a man camp. When they begin major construction next year, we estimate that we'll have about 100 people living on the island between May and October.
Now, did you guys do a wind analysis before you started doing this? I know I was talking to Kodiak when I was down there, and they said they were required to do an analysis of the wind capabilities. So did you guys already do that to figure out there's enough sustainable wind?
Actually, I would say that Fire Island is one of the most studied wind regimes in the country, possibly. We've been collecting data between the utilities and CIRI. We've been collecting data out on the island since 2000. and we have had a internationally known consultant who's worked with us to quantify the amount of wind that we have, and it is a commercially viable wind resource.
Thank you.
So we've also developed a runway which will be used to transport folks over to the island. And as I said, we are in the process of excavating and driving piles for 2 turbine foundations, which we're going to complete before the end of this construction season. So just a picture of some of the work that's going on over on Fire Island. This is a gravel screening operation. We developed this gravel pit for completion of the runway and some road work and a laydown yard. And this is a picture of the laydown yard. It was full of trees, so we've cleared a highly forested area, taken it down to chipped up material, and then this will become a roadway in the future. And this is, maybe 2 weeks later when they've gone back and cleared off some of that chipped up material. This is the
Sunny days.
Good.
Over 3 years.
It took them 8 years to get those photos.
You can see the kinds of conditions when I like to go over there and take pictures is on sunny days. So this is sort of looking up to the north end of the island, and the barge landing is going to be on the north end of the island, where we'll bring all of the equipment for the civil construction, and also where we'll bring the wind turbines on. So this is the development of the road from the barge landing. And this is sort of from the plane on the way up, so you can see that the laydown yard is also on the north end of the island, and there's the primary runway and also a crosswind runway, depending on which way the wind is blowing. So again, sort of our schedule for moving construction forward. We will mobilize major construction efforts on or about April 15th, as soon as ice clears from Cook Inlet next year, and we'll do all of the civil construction. So all of the permanent roads, the access roads to get to each of the turbines, the electrical collection system will go in next year, the transmission line, both subsea and the transmission line that runs across Fire Island, and then on the mainland across the airport and over to Chugach's International Substation. All of that will be constructed next year, along with the O&M building. And then in 2012, essentially the only thing that we'll have left to do is the turbine deliveries to Fire Island, move them, all of the different pieces down to each turbine pad, erect the turbine, commission them, and then we're expecting first power. There's a sort of a testing period that takes place where you're commissioning each unit, and that'll start in September, and we'll have full commercial operation by October 2012. So there's a lot of different elements at work here, a lot of moving pieces. We are very far along in our agreement with General Electric on turbine supply. I have to say that we have been able to accomplish things that I don't think that we were sure that we could do at the outset, and it's sort of a function of what's going on in the economy. We have been able, just on a high level, to reduce our cost by, where do you think,
Almost
$30 million from our initial pro forma, where we thought we were going to be, and that's just from hard negotiations with wind turbine suppliers, construction contractors, and logistics contractors. We still think that there's some value to wring out of those relationships, and we're working hard to do what we can to reduce the price from there, but we're really excited by the $30 million that we've been able to whittle the price down so far. We have, as I said, we had a competitive bidding process to find a contractor, and we have awarded the construction, a limited notice to proceed on the construction contract to a company called Delaney Construction Group. And Delaney Construction Group is a wholly owned subsidiary of Tetra Tech. Tetra Tech is the company that actually built the Kodiak Wind project. And so they bring a level of experience that none of the other bidders were able to bring to the project. And I think as a result of knowing what it's like to work, to construct a project in Alaska, they were able to come in significantly under other bidders who had to, maybe put a level of margin in there for the unknown, working in such a sort of difficult environment.
Kodiak was saying there's one crane that they have to get. It has to be barged up here because of how big it is. So this company's going to make arrangements for that crane to get here so they can lift
Yeah.
towers up.
Yes, that is in the construction contractor's scope of work.
Thank you.
Tara, the height of the tower, the center of the hub is about 250 feet. Maybe they told you that, but it's
I understand
way up
there's
there.
there is one ladder that you go up to get to the top of it.
Yeah, that's right.
And they usually only let one person up there at a time.
And you don't want to be below that person.
You don't want to be below it. How big are the blades? 186 feet? How long are the blades?
They are 82.5 meters.
Yes, that's the rotor diameter is 82
Right.
meters, so that's 245-ish feet, but each blade's going to be about roughly half that. So whatever that works out to, 130 feet.
And these GE ones were ones you can change the pitch on the blade depending on the wind condition.
Yeah, it's, we hope that we get this thing, under construction. It's really interesting to watch projects get built, because once you have the foundations in place and you have the erection contractor there, they can actually complete from a pile of pieces on the ground to a fully operational wind turbine in about 2 days. And so they kind of just pop up one after the other. And during that period of time, I'm sure CIRI is going to be offering lots of opportunities for people to come out and tour the site and have a chance to learn about just how complicated and, not in a bad way, but how complex and sophisticated the control systems are, and the wind sensing systems, and those things are not just windmills out there. They're very sophisticated machinery.
Talking to Kodiak, it was an event down there when they erected the wind turbines down there. Everybody in town wanted to see them go up and operate.
Yeah, we've talked to them as well, and they say now that everybody in town can see the project. It's up on a hill. And they actually get calls from people saying, number 2 looks like it's turning a little slow today. You guys, something going on there? And so they were joking with us that they don't even really need to have a maintenance crew there, because the townspeople just keep informed of everything that's going on.
They told me they saved about 900,000 gallons of diesel last year by depending upon the wind.
Yeah, we've got some slides later on about how we
Sorry to
equate
bother
that to the gas savings that we anticipate here.
So other major contracts that need to be executed is a logistics contractor, the company that's going to be responsible for picking up the wind turbine components from GE. A huge percentage of those components are manufactured right here in the United States, but it's possible that some of the components, the towers and the blades, most specifically might come from Asia and Brazil. But they also, GE sort of keeps their ability to source turbine components as they see fit. And so we're working with them to make sure that the components, a lot of them come from America, and we're happy about that. But one of the other issues that we have is making sure that the logistics contract is as economical as possible. And sometimes for those really big pieces, because of the Jones Act, it's cheaper for us to source the towers from overseas. We have hired a company who often works for other rail belt utilities to do the design work for the transmission line, and so that is far underway, and we'll be having a competitive RFP for that construction process as well. We estimate that the transmission line can be built for slightly more than the grant, the $25 million grant, but there are agreements in place between, well, I wouldn't say they're in place, but they're in discussion, and they're far along in the discussions about how that overage will get paid for. I'm sure that many of you are familiar with the fact that there is a navigational aid facility that sits in the center of Fire Island. We have agreements in place with the FAA to construct a new Dopplerized navigational aid facility on Anchorage International Airport, and the construction for that project is underway. Once it gets completed, which should happen before the end of this year. I mean, much of the facility has already been constructed and it's in the process of being transported to Anchorage, and it'll be installed over on the airport, and then they'll do some flight testing. And once it passes the flight test, then the VOR that's over on Fire Island will be decommissioned, and that is expected to happen in the middle of next year, which gives us the ability to begin erecting turbines. And so that commissioning will happen 6 to 9 months before we even begin erecting turbines. So that's not a scheduling issue any longer. We're working with the utilities on various studies for integrating wind into the rail belt system. Wind is an intermittent generation resource, and so it does pose certain questions, and it's certainly going to change the way that the system dispatchers have to operate the system. And so we're working closely with Chugach, ML&P, and Golden Valley on the best, most cost-effective way to integrate the project into the rail belt. We are in serious negotiations with all of the rail belt utilities. So we've made, and I would say, we've made very good progress on our power purchase agreement term sheets, and we're hopeful that we'll be able to reach sort of agreement on the term sheet in the October timeframe, and then we'd be looking for board and assembly review and approval in the November timeframe. And I guess I will talk just a little bit about why that schedule is so important, and it really all goes to getting to financial close. We have set April 1st as the date that we will obtain financial close, and we have to have RCA-approved power purchase agreements in order to get money from the bank to finance the project. And in order to get the RCA enough time to review the power purchase agreements, we feel like we need to submit them in December, early December. So that's sort of pushing the approval process to October and November. And finally, the last major component of the project will be choosing an operations and maintenance provider. We're talking to experienced operations and maintenance providers. We're also talking to the utilities about their interest in providing some of those services if possible under certain structures. So we're working the project in the most efficient way we can to bring about this resource in a cost-effective way.
Okay, let's talk numbers. And first, I just wanted to start off by also thanking you for your time today, and especially thanking my good friends Ashley and Suzanne over at CIRI for forwarding me the Casual Friday memo. But I'm actually going for the best dressed one. I think I'm in competition with you. You look awful nice.
Well, thank you.
Here we are. We'll have a vote afterwards.
Give multiple questions.
Yeah, you're right in there. It's nice looking picture. Okay, so there's several points we want to make about numbers, right? Wind and renewable resources in general have the reputation, and maybe the reality, in many markets in the country of being quote-unquote expensive. And so, we're not going to back away from that. We're going to show you all of our numbers, projections of cost, projections of the power value that we can sell for to get the project built. We encourage your questions on all of this. CIRI, it's important, I think, for folks in the community to understand some things about CIRI as a project owner. We've worked over the course of the history of our company, we've worked with literally dozens of power project owners. And CIRI has done some very unique things in this instance. They have, for the first major thing they did was they made an open book development pledge, and what that means is they have said, we'll open our books to you, we'll show you everything we're spending money on, we'll show you our profits, we'll show you our costs, and we'll let you in the community, the buyer community in particular, have access to all the project economics. That's very unusual. Most for-profit developers never, ever show that information to their buyers. You know, it'd be like going in to buy a car and then giving the car salesman a copy of your bank statements so he'll know whether you have the money in the bank and can afford the car or not. But the point is, CIRI's not hiding anything. They're not making, even in my view, a market rate of return. CIRI's returns on their investment in this project are going to be 9% on an unlevered basis. I mean, you can do that math. I think Nexco was their big for-profit developer. They were a part of this project prior to our involvement. I know for a fact that their return hurdles are almost twice that. I have friends who work for a company called Site Global. They're a worldwide developer of power projects. Their hurdle rates are almost 20%. And so you've got a member of your local community here who's looking only for a 9% return on their investment. And they're hiring local firms to do the majority of the work. And they're trying to buy equipment from GE as sourced from the United States as much as possible. And so there's a lot of very positive things just about the fact that you've got this local owner in your community doing this project with you. Having said all that, the breakdown of how the elements of the project are priced at this point in time, we've got the wind turbines and parts and the transport of the turbines from wherever the equipment is sourced to Alaska at $81 million. As Suzanne said in the beginning, in this context is probably 6 or 8 months ago, when we started actually thinking about making offers to people to buy the power from the project. What would we base those offers on? What cost of the project? And in that point in time, we were talking about a project that had a total value of $190 million. Now we're talking about a project that has a $162 million price tag. So that's significant amount of enhancement to the economics of the project, which has been accomplished primarily through negotiation by CIRI and, you know, unfortunately in some cases, but fortunate for us in this context, the economy's down. People who are giving us bids are very hungry for work, and so the costs that we're getting are somewhat reflective of the economy, somewhat reflective of negotiation. So we got about $80 million in the actual wind turbine hardware and transport. We got about just under $50 million in the balance of plant, construction, foundations, roads, buildings, that sort of thing. Managing all the construction, 7.5, contingency, 4.5. That's a fairly low number. And the reason that's fairly low, given the total here, is that these numbers are now much more firm than they were before. When this was a $190 million project, we were looking at these big ticket items as plus or minus maybe 30%, 20%. Now we see these numbers as plus or minus 5%. Fees for consultants, legal, taxes, including my firm, we're at $11 million. Gives you a total of $151. The cost of financing the project, it's actually a little longer than a year, it's almost 2 years, but the cost of financing on top of the actual buying of the hardware and the services to build it is about $10 million. So you've got an all-in finance cost at about $163-ish million. How we're going to finance that is through the 1603 cash grant. We get almost $44 million right off the top. So the way we apply as Suzanne said, the way we've been instructed to apply the benefits in terms of grants from both the state and the federal government is to just start at the top line, take every single dollar right off of the top line. Again, I just finished the deal that was sold to, a big deal that was sold to some utilities in Southern California, including the city of Los Angeles. In that case, the developer had a grant that was a much bigger project, but it was about a $250 million grant. They didn't even give half of it back to the project. They kept over half of it for their own profits. So now you've got CIRI in the community giving every single dollar back. So you get a net cost of $118 million after the grant. And out of that, we will go get a bank loan for $81 million. And then we'll make up the difference with CIRI's invested equity.
So Elby's got a question for you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just really, really quick. So I see the $43 million federal grant. Where's the $25 million state grant?
Well, we didn't even include it. It's a little bit confusing because this number doesn't include the cost of building the transmission line. So if we put the cost of building the transmission line in, we'd have a $187 million number here. and then we take the 25 out of the grant. It's just a,
So you're gonna use 25 for building transmission?
yeah.
Right, and the reason why we don't include it in our project number is because the transmission line is going to be constructed by CIRI because it's imperative that it be done in a timely manner so that when we're ready for commercial operation, the line is already built. But the transmission line will not be owned by CIRI or our project entity. It will be owned by the utilities. It will be a Chugach asset at the end of the day.
Makes sense. It's kind of like a down payment. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, ma'am. Mayor. Yes.
And to that end, operation and maintenance cost will that be borne by the utilities on the transmission line, anything that happens downstream?
On the transmission line, what's going to end up happening is the project will look at, the host utility is Chugach Electric, and so Chugach Electric will take over ownership of the line and the submarine cable once we build it. Then they will become our vendor for transmission services. And the project will buy transmission, or the buyers of power from the project. I'm not sure exactly how that will work out here, but somebody will buy transmission services from Chugach, which will help them cover the cost of owning and maintaining over time that line from the island.
Any estimates on that at all?
Not yet. It won't be a huge part of the price. Normally the transmission aspect of the power price from a renewable project is under 3% of the total.
But just to add to that, the cost of the transmission line is probably estimated at this point to be about 10% more than the grant. But part of I would say all of the reason why it's coming in above the state appropriated grant is because we're adding a third submarine transmission line to make it, triply redundant in case anything happens, so that we can, to one line, we can continue to move power from the whole project all the time. So we have been working closely with Chugach on the design parameters of the transmission line. So we're moving in lockstep and we're building it to utility standard so that it will have, I would say minimal operation and maintenance costs for the transmission line.
Okay, so we want to try to be as accurate as we can be, but there's a lot of moving parts with regard to the power purchase agreements. And in the end, that's really the key aspect that we're focusing on at the moment is how do we secure a revenue stream over time for the project that allows us to move forward with financing. CIRI has, another point I'd make about CIRI is, and we'll mention it later in the presentation, but on a percentage of project cost basis, CIRI is going out of pocket, in this case, almost twice as much as a normal project owner would, just on speculation that somebody will buy the power from them. And the reason they're doing that is because they want to preserve the project's ability to qualify for and capture that federal grant. So we have begun discussions that were differing levels of detail, I guess, with each one of these four buyers, but we are in discussions at some level with all four of them. These are the nameplate megawatts out of the 52.8 that we are suggesting people buy. So in the case of MLNP, we're talking about just under 15 megawatts or 28% of the project output. If you look at that as an average annual megawatt number, like a 24/7 kind of number, convert this number of megawatt hours into 24/7 type power, it's just a little under 5 megawatts on an average annual basis. Next. So to put a little finer point on that, we have submitted term sheets to MLP. We're in discussions with Jim and Dan various times about the content, not only the pricing, but also the other terms. The starting price in June when we made our first offer was 11.8 cents per kilowatt hour. Because of those price reductions that we talked about, we're now under 10 cents. And up to 10 cents, the price of the energy, which is really the price of the hardware and the construction, makes up about 3/4 of the overall price. The price of O&M is about 1/3. We're proposing to sell the power over a 25-year term, and the power will be delivered to the loads as generated. So as the wind blows and makes power, then the utilities will buy the power from the project. We will provide warranties on the integrity of the project in two ways, with both the availability of equipment to produce, and also when the wind blows at a certain speed, we will guarantee that it will produce the proper amount given the manufacturer's original specifications. There's some chance in the O&M. There's two ways to structure the O&M. The project owner can have that responsibility totally and just give the buyers a fixed price for the O&M every year, or the buyers can collaborate with the project owner, create a budget, and have more of a pass-through basis. We think that's a little cheaper for you in the end to do the pass-through, but we haven't, in the case of MLP, decided which way we're going to go yet. That's not another earthquake, is it?
No, it's
The thing you like.
Oh, baby, we'd be making megawatts today, I'll tell you what. This is all right, so even a little bit further down into the details, then what exactly does this mean for MLP? So 28% of our project is about 40,000 megawatt hours a year. That will end up being on a residential meter basis. That would be about just under 5,000 homes per year could be powered from the power that you would buy, your share of the power from the project. In the context of the total business you're in, you sell about 1.1 million megawatt hours a year. We would be 40,000 of the 1.1 million, so we would be about, the project would be about 5% of your total in a year. Your annual payment that you would make to us at that 9.9 cent rate for the power would be, excuse me, this one and that one together add up to the 9.9. So this is like the 7.3 cent rate for the energy. That's about 2.9 million. Add the O&M onto it, another million, and then the cost of integration. Suzanne alluded to that a little bit earlier. Integration, the wind's variable today. You can see it, and so if you're generating power from the wind, you have a continuously variable source of power. So one of the main components of integration is to provide additional generation capability that complements the variability of the wind and allows the output from the wind plus the integrating resource to be firm and reliable so that you can count on it to serve load. So there's a cost to do that. We have a 2.5 cent budget in for integration. I'll talk more about that in a minute. So that adds another $1 million on the cost. So at the end of the year, the municipality of Anchorage will have spent $5 million on the wind energy necessary to serve about 5,000 of your homes. Okay, this is a kind of a very busy slide.
Jennifer has a question.
Oh, actually, I probably
Wanna go back?
shown it. No, I was wondering if you're going to have a gas turbine for the integration, and then how would you get the gas to Fire Island?
It doesn't have, the gas, or the integration resource can be pretty much anywhere as long as it's connected to the grid. And the most likely way we'll end up acquiring the integration resources is through a contract with Chugach or MLMP or some amount. We will actually buy capability from the utilities. And they will use whatever's available at the most economic at the time to be able to provide that service for us. This is a slide where we're trying to show the relativity of cost over time. I think in the beginning I said we always want to be clear and acknowledge that we have in the renewable energy business a reputation for selling high-cost power. But we also know that our cost of power includes zero for fuel. And in the rail belt, you have 90% of your gas, 90% of your power is generated with natural gas. So 90% of the power that you consume right now has fuel price risk associated with it. It's not an insignificant risk, and it's not an insignificant risk just to have 90% of anything in one basket. This is actually a graph that was developed by Matanuska Electric. It was published in March 2010. It's a part of their integrated resource plan update, which was prepared by Black & Veatch. So these are not our numbers. These are numbers from an independent third party. Can we slide that one over?
I don't think I can. I don't know how to.
I wonder what happened. Formatted wacky. Well, I can remember the numbers.
Okay.
Okay, so what we're showing here is there's a various range of resources that they're thinking about into the future. You can see that we're we're starting our graph at about 2015. They chose to do that. So this particular graph line is a gas turbine, a aeroderivative GE LM2500, very similar to units which are already in use or being planned in the rail belt today. This starts at $165 per megawatt hour, including fuel and capital and O&M, and goes up from there. The operative part, this is a hard line to see, but try to trace it out for you. It sort of goes like that. This yellow line was the projected cost at the time of publication for Fire Island Wind, as calculated by Black and Beach. So again, not our numbers, somebody else's numbers. This number is about 140. So this delta is about $25 a megawatt hour. And you can see over time, because there's very little increase in cost, only because you really all you have is your O&M costs, your labor costs over time, and taxes, insurance might go up a little bit. So you're a relatively flat production cost curve. And so everything else that you have that has fuel price risk associated with it, who knows whether this slope is right, but the direction is right, probably. And so the point we want people to think about is, as you justify a decision whether to move forward with this resource or not, you'll hear people talk about what's your avoided cost. Your avoided cost of energy is under $50 a megawatt hour. We're estimating to spend $99 a megawatt hour today. But the idea is that you'll be looking at this resource at a cost profile like this over time, and your avoided cost, because it's based on gas at some level, when you have the lowest price gas in the inlet, in the rail belt, we know that, but even so, it won't last forever. So there's some aspect of this is going to happen to your fuel costs, and so over time, these two graphs will diverge, and the lifetime cost, the life cycle cost of power from the wind project should be very, very competitive with your fuel generation costs, even though it starts out a fair measure higher.
Just point out where the actual line for Fire Island is.
Yeah, all right, so this is the Black and Beach projected line. That's 140, that's 165. We're actually at 100, so we're down here. I don't know why that's stupid. We could make this anything we want. We didn't put any axis on our graph.
But it's probably on their handouts, they can probably see it.
Is it really?
It's not.
Well, I could send it, I can
We'll have to
email
fix
it.
that.
Yep.
You can find it, it's on page 13, now this from memory, of the Integrated Resource Plan from Matt Musco Electric, which is on the internet. These are not our numbers.
Can you go back for a second here?
Sure.
Which of these lines are supposed to imitate MLMP's current generation costs?
None of them do, because this
These are all
was
different options that
NEA was looking at, so they all go forward and they're all new generation options that they were studying and evaluating.
Yeah, these are, what we're really trying to show is perspective here. Fuel price risk versus no fuel price risk. And this is a different utility. But the cost, I think the commonality here is that you have resources everywhere in the rail belt that are fueled by natural gas, and the price and cost of natural gas way more likely to go up over time than it is to go down.
Well, and just to put maybe a finer point on it, that green line at the top is a brand new LM2500, which is much more efficient than the average heat rate of anything that we have running on the system right now. So even with the new machine and that better heat rate, there's still just this huge divergence between wind and gas-fired.
I don't know if Dan or Jim will chime in or not, but my guess is in the specific case of your utility, this graph would look different. Your existing resource base probably moves down into here somewhere. All these lines probably start down here, and they go up at some slope. We would go down a little bit too because our actual cost is below the projection. So probably what happens is this goes down to here, we start up above where your base resources are, but as they escalate, there's a crossover point, and I still think over the long haul, the life cycle cost of the energy is more advantageous, or at least competitive.
Which is exactly the same thing that happened with Bradley Lake, when they brought Bradley Lake on. Bradley Lake was above every utility's avoided cost, and now it's by far the cheapest energy available to the utility.
Okay, next slide. A little more on integration and interconnection. You'll hear, and it's about the point, there's been a lot of energy spent and time and money spent on trying to understand how the variable, intermittent, unpredictable generation from our project impacts the rail belt generation portfolio as a whole. The resolution of that is being accomplished through integration studies, interconnect studies, very highly technical studies. I think we're going to get there. We're getting assistance from at National Renewable Energy Lab, General Electric, and others who are very expert at figuring this stuff out. But some news even for Jim and Dan that we haven't shared with you yet is that CIRI this week, just literally this week, and we started talking with some of our other buyers about it. CIRI, in another way that they're stepping up to help shoulder risk on this project is figuring out a way. We're very close to being able to figure out a way that we're going to cap the integration charges at $25 a megawatt hour financially. Ourselves, our checkbook.
What's my number?
25? That's 99.
What was my number during your presentation though?
Your number was 45.
Okay, good.
That's really the issue, right? I mean, we have, everyone has a perspective until we get all the studies in. We don't know the number.
We don't disagree.
And so what we're really trying to accomplish here is for CIRI to say, okay, we recognize that. We're not disputing it. But we also have this thing we need to get done. So we'll put our money where our mouth is. Appreciate it. Okay, so comparative economics, I think we're running a little long. I'll try to pick up the pace a little bit here. We talked about...
We have about 6 minutes.
Okay, I got about 48 slides, so...
That's my PowerPoint. We appreciate it.
All right, so how does this project stack up against other Alaska wind projects? Here's the Kodiak Pillar Mountain Wind Project. This is publicly available data. Their cost to install that project was $4.75 million per megawatt. But that's, for that site, I'm not saying that's bad. It just was what it was. It's on top of a mountain. There's not very many machines. It was expensive. Golden Valley has announced their own 24 megawatt project at $93 million. So that's $3.875 million per installed megawatt. Our project at 52.8 and at $139 million after you get the federal grant out is only $2.2 million. So substantially cheaper than some of the other wind projects. Another way to show it here is we've done a comparison. These are some of the projects that we're aware of or have worked on that we inside the Summit firm, just to give you some idea of how Fire Island stacks up on an installed net cost basis compared to wind in the state of Idaho and Oregon and Washington. Some solar projects we compared to in California and Nevada. But the point we're trying to make here is that there are utilities in many parts of the country signing contracts today. This is, I mentioned earlier that I signed a contract for a solar project. This is that one, right there. And the output profile for that solar project on an annual basis is not that different than this wind resource. And so people are paying up. Solar, $140, $155 a megawatt hour. Oregon and Washington wind ends up being contracted for at about $100 a megawatt hour, or that's 10 cents a kilowatt hour. So that's about where we're at in this case. We would not be at those price levels if we didn't have the grants and subsidies that we're trying to qualify for. So that's what makes it important. Get you guys a wind resource that's not out of line with the rest of the country. So why should we, we've told you our numbers, we've told you where we're at with construction. Why should we take the next step and sign a power purchase agreement? There are some direct benefits both to the railbelt utility community as a whole and to the municipality of Anchorage. Related to the railbelt utilities, we're still not done quantifying it, but there is some enhancement to the hydro operations, the hydro plants that already are in the railbelt. When the wind's blowing, you're not using hydropower in a time when you might not otherwise want to use it. You can save it for a higher value period. This is very telling, I think. The natural gas dependency of the railbelt in general is reduced. Now, we can stand here all day and argue about whether it's a BCF or a BCF and a half or 0.8 or 0.9 BCF, whatever it is, but there's some savings in fuel. if you assume, we would calculate theoretically it's as high as a BCF and a half, but if you say it's only 1 BCF, so only 2/3 of what it could be, then I'm, again, using someone else's numbers. Chugach has given us their gas forecast for the future. And they say that they think that the average price of natural gas for the next 25 years will range between about $9 and $15 per million cubic feet. If you do a net present value over the 25 years at a 7.5% cost of capital, the range of savings of fuel only that you get is between $90 and $151 million. And we're only trying to finance a $118 million project. So, there are, maybe you look at it and say, well, wait a minute, the cost of gas savings essentially pays for the project. That's not really true, but the point we're trying to make is that the amount of gas you won't burn over time is equivalent to what you're spending on a capital basis for the wind project. Now, you're going to have to pay over time to operate the wind project, so it's not free from the day you buy it, but that's a big number, a big savings, and it's a very important benefit. Another thing that we haven't really talked about, it's very hard to quantify. Nobody's really paying us for this, but you do achieve over 100,000 tons per year of carbon dioxide, which are not emitted, 70 tons of carbon monoxide, which is toxic and a greenhouse gas, 85 tons of oxides of nitrogen, which is a haze producer, along with the particulates that come out of the gas itself. Another 6 tons there. So significant emissions reductions as a result of the project. And this is because, again, natural gas generation would be turned off in favor of the wind at some level. We calculate that net, the overall cost of this project to the average rail belt electric customer is under a nickel a day. And so over time, you're basically talking about the cost of a latte every month as the maximum cost of this project to someone who lives in the rail belt. And then finally, on the rail belt wide level, we're making one step towards moving closer to the 50% renewable goal set by legislation. Okay, Suzanne, you want to talk about the Anchorage municipality benefits?
Well, I think I've pretty much touched on this before, but again, we're going to be creating over 200 construction jobs in the next 2 years and have 10 to 12 long-term, high-paying jobs for operating and maintaining the wind project. And we would expect that the tax revenue benefit to the municipality is somewhere between $500,000 and $750,000 each year in property taxes. Which is somewhere between $12 and $19 million over the life of the power purchase agreements. And a lot of that economic stimulus is going to be just right here in Anchorage, in the local community. We expect that we're going to spend somewhere on the order of $80 million, and everyone understands that that has a multiplier effect in the economy. Again, this is CIRI. We're local here. Our shareholders have ties to Cook Inlet, and we are very committed to this project. And it's popular. We've done several polls. I think Chugach and maybe even MLMP have done it before as well.
Then I'm afraid that we're running out of time.
Yeah, this is it.
Okay.
I'm going to just get to this really fast. I wanted just to paint a picture for you of where we are with resource development in Cook Inlet. The green line at the top is the monthly production in Cook Inlet, and the blue line at the bottom is monthly consumption by electric and gas utilities since 2004. And you can see that the spread between production and consumption has been declining. I mean, this is a trend that you can follow back for many, many years, and yet the resource portfolio that we have with our utilities has not changed, even though this trend has been identified for many years. And just to put a finer point on that, the amount of production that we have lost in the last 5 years has been 40%. There's been a 40% reduction in natural gas production in Cook Inlet. And at the same time, this is the amount of gas that we've been exporting on an annual basis to Japan through the LNG export facility down in Kenai. And to put a finer point on that, here's what the cost of gas delivered to Japan has done over time. So even though they're able to sell natural gas in Japan for $13 and they have export authority to export more gas than what they have done in the last few years, they can't do it because there's not enough production. So I think that this is a pretty important confirmation that the production reduction in Cook Inlet is real.
Okay, so yeah, we need to get out of here, but just to reinforce, we're going to put the pedal to the metal. We're going to try to get commercial terms agreed upon with MLP in the next 30 to 45 days. We'll be seeking, hopefully, if we get to that point, we'll be seeking consideration approval by this body sometime 30 days or so after that. And, we just wanted to make sure that you were aware of what we were thinking about, where we're coming from, and we encourage you to stay in touch with us. Jim knows how to find us.
Jim knows a way to find lots of people.
Yeah, so if you have questions or you want us to come back, we're more than happy to do it.
I think we'll have you back. Any questions from assembly members? Elby?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to say I'm really excited about this project, and I have been since 2005 when I worked with MLMP, the Alaska River Energy Authority. But my question is, I know, or at least I believe that Chugag has 3 turbines already out there.
Well, they're in the process of building a new, wind turbines?
Yes.
No, there's no wind turbines.
Not anymore?
Well,
There were.
Met towers.
Met stations.
Just getting data.
Yeah, they were data collection stations that measured wind speed data.
Thank you. And again, thank you for the presentation. It was fabulous. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Anything, Paul? Thank you for being here. We appreciate it. Okay, well, yes, Harry?
Just one really minor point. That latte, where do you get a latte for $1.50? That was a surprisingly very kind of, not a latte.
This meeting